Welcome to Your Unique Brilliance podcast with Nicola Salter, bringing you a weekly fresh flow of guidance, inspirations, powerful tips, and conversations designed to help you create your vision, discover your greatest diamond potential, and begin living the life you want. This is about empowering your truth, your choice, and your voice. Hello and welcome back to Your Unique Brilliance podcast with me, Nicola Salter, and I am absolutely delighted to have with us today Rebecca Bloom, who is the author of the fabulous book, When Women Get Sick. Hi, Rebecca.
Hey, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you so much for coming on the show today. We're very lucky to have Rebecca today because of her background and how she's an advocate for women's wellness and has been doing this for a very long time. And her book is just full of so much wisdom, knowledge, and unconditional love and caring for us women. So this is why I'm excited to have her on the show today, because she is going to be talking about our health and wellness, insurances, what to look out for in terms of the right healthcare for us when we're sick or even when we're not sick. The information in her book is truly valuable for each of us. It's an easy read. I found it an easy breeze to read through, cover to cover, by the way, Rebecca. It was great. And I myself, as a Brit living in America, have found the healthcare system for women very complicated and often walked away from it. After reading her book, it really brought me back to center. And I was like, okay, I have to really get on my toes with my healthcare here. Because as women, we tend to put ourselves second and not first. And so in her book, Rebecca also talks about the healthcare systems available to us and how sometimes they can devalue us as women, turning us down when we actually do need treatment and what to do about that. So a little bit about Rebecca before we dive into the show. So Rebecca left her post as an employee benefits and compensation lawyer at one of the most well-known New York law firms to pursue her passion for women's health advocacy. Thank you so much, Rebecca, for doing that. We're so lucky and fortunate that you did. And using her own stories with her own family and her own health, and also those experiences in the trenches with her healthcare, she's brought together this amazing book based on her experiences that really bring to light the complex rules that govern women's healthcare and how we can empower ourselves to confidently integrate all of that information that's out there and focus more fully on our recovery and wellness. After all, that's the most important thing. Rebecca, so it's just such a blessing to have you here. I would love for you to share with us how you became an advocate for women's health and wellness.
Sure thing. First of all, I just want to say thank you so much for having me. And I really hope that what we talk about today is of use and inspiration to your listeners.
Thank you so much.
Of course.
I know it will be. I know it
Oh,
will be.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how did I get here? Well, it was a bit of a happy accident in a lot of ways. I went to law school and racked up student loans and had to go work at one of the bigs, a
Yeah.
big law firm, as they call them. They call
Mhm.
it big law.
Big law.
And
Okay.
yeah, and in choosing a specialty once I got there, that was actually pretty tough for me because I was a humanities major in college. I'm a reader, I'm a thinker, I'm a philosopher, I'm a all those things, right? Um, I'm a bookish, thoughtful person. And I thought, wow, the stretch to what rules the world, corporations, and financial instruments, none of that stuff was interesting to me. Truly, it wasn't. So I thought, well, how am I going to thread this needle? So I chose a specialty very small, less than 1% of any of these big law, big firms, as it were.
Mm.
And I chose a specialty that I felt like my direct clients there would be the human resources department. I like that word human, thought that was good. So I chose this specialty called employee benefits and compensation. And essentially what it was all of the laws that govern the employment relationship, including health insurance, benefits. The safety net in America is confusing, honestly, because it's
Yeah.
like sort of part government, less and less so, and part corporate, really. Where do you get those things that connect you to the world that are part
Mm,
of, let's say, the social contract, the reason you'd pay taxes in the first place.
mhm.
And the fact is, so many of them come through the employment relationship. That's just the way it's structured here. So I learned some stuff that I never knew I wanted to know around all these layers of laws. There's sort of like the health laws, the benefits laws, the anti-discrimination laws. They all come together, and not in a simple way, in a complicated way,
Yeah.
um, in order to protect employees in that relationship. And what I saw when we were doing these big giant transactions was, let's say one company's gobbling another company. Well, the question becomes, who takes those people that are on disability? Who takes them? You know, who's
True.
responsible for them? That whole concept kind of blew my mind. I thought, wow, we're talking about human beings here
Yeah,
who
exactly.
are probably on health journeys, because
Yeah.
that would be why they were on disability in the first place, right?
Right, right.
Um, so it just struck me that, wow, there was something bigger here. Well, then I moved to Silicon Valley with my husband and my very small baby. And very shortly thereafter, my mom was diagnosed with breast cancer back in New York. So I went home and I tried to just run the point for my mom, get the flowers when they were delivered, sort of field the phone calls, help with the doctor's appointments, the second opinions, the bills, all of this stuff. And I thought, whoa,
This is a lot.
this is hard.
Yeah.
And my mom had my dad. He was a lawyer. They had good health insurance. They had relative financial stability. They had all those things. And yet, this was a labyrinth. And
Hmm.
it was complicated in more ways than just those. It was complicated around, here are the treatments that are being recommended to my mother. And some of them are putting chemicals in her body that, she just found out she had an illness she didn't know she had. Then she's being told the cure for this illness are these things that science has said work, but that doesn't mean you feel great and comfortable about what they are.
Hmm.
There's just a
Exactly.
lot to it, a lot to it. Um, and so I started to realize, whoa, I've actually been given a gift, this training that I got where was staying up all night thinking, what am I doing this for? Is this what I worked so hard for my whole life?
Mhm.
All of a sudden, I realized, whoa, this could really be useful to a lot of women. So I came home and I went into our local breast cancer organization where I still I still serve their
Oh, that's great.
clients to this
Yeah.
day, more than 26 years later.
Hmm.
I think it might be 27 now. I swear, I think when I started the book process, which takes a long time, I think it was 25, 26. So I think we're going on 27, 28 by now.
Oh my goodness.
Um, anyway, getting quite close to 30 years, let's just say. And I went into the executive director and I said, listen, I wonder if maybe this training that I have could be useful to your clients. It's very esoteric. When I explained it to her, she said, wow, this is not something that happens to us every day, you know.
Right.
And she said, yeah, let's try it. Let's see how many people you can help. Let's start triaging our clients when they have questions in your wheelhouse, which includes workplace, health space, and benefits. Let's see if you can help. And well, it's
That's how
been
it started.
that's how it started, and it's just been it's been something else to realize how a human being can use her gifts and her training in a really impactful way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and not many of us get to put that all together. And that's what's so
Yeah,
impressive here. It's like, what can I, as you just said, get from this and how I can help others?
yeah,
And of course, I'm assuming it fulfills you. It seems to, because you're so unconditional in how much care you give.
it
Uh,
really does.
yeah, I
It
can
really
see it. I
does.
can
I
see
feel
it.
so fortunate to be able to step on the gas with something that I have
Mhm.
that can be used so effectively. Yeah, it's
So
wonderful.
let's look at that more then in more detail because you took that moment and then you started to run with it. Uh, where did that lead you to? You had the conversation with her, like, these are the gifts I can share. And then what did you start to do? What happened after that?
So I started to take calls and
Hmm.
sometimes go to appointments and help advocate. for women in this really it's a holistic way. Not
Mm.
holistic like kumbaya holistic,
No, right.
but in terms of, usually if you have a health advocate, they
Mm.
just know the health system. And there people like that can be so wonderful in that context. But the truth is, a whole life includes the community, the workplace, the kids, the caregiving. It's just wider.
Mm.
And so, because of the training that I started with, I was able to learn how to really round it out
Mm.
in a way that made it so useful and helpful to women and so gratifying for me, because it's really great to be able to pull all the levers that are available in order to help somebody have the most successful health journey they can have.
Yeah, and it's all under one umbrella. And this is what struck me from the book. You talk about having a chief of staff.
Yeah.
When you find you have got a serious health issue come up, as you just said earlier, recognizing you can't do this on your own. It's important to have that team and with someone who can support you. So this chief of staff, you have someone in your circle that you appoint the chief of staff. How does that work?
Yeah, that is how it works. It's funny. Think about all the ways that women project manage
Right.
inside of their businesses, their family lives, whatever it is that they do. We're always project managing, but we never think of that when we're ourselves in a vulnerable place, like on a health journey.
Hmm.
Because really, I mean, let's say, you work for a company or a nonprofit. You don't hesitate to create an org chart where you parcel out the tasks that need to be done and who might be the best person to do it. But
Hmm.
when it comes to your own health, you somehow, I don't know if it's a worthiness issue, if you, or what it is that makes people not realize how important this is, but also how available certain tools are to make it work.
Hmm.
So so when it comes to the chief of staff, it's the person that you give the whistle and the clipboard to, so that you don't have to be the one to say, oh, that person who's the accountant, let them make the spreadsheet. Oh, my friend who is a part-time chef, she could just make more food for dinner and bring some over.
Hmm.
You shouldn't have to be worrying about that when you're thinking about your healing. So the chief of staff could be could be a lawyer, could be a project manager, could be just that person, who's that organized person. I don't know, you and I talked before about the Enneagram. Maybe it's the one on the Enneagram, that perfectionist person,
Okay.
could be, or the eight, the power
Yeah.
person,
Yeah.
could be any of those. But it's, who's in your life. And people don't hesitate to ask you for the things that you're good at to
Hmm.
help them. This is just sort of the reverse of that. I know we as women aren't great at asking for help. It's not our nature. But
Well,
if you
yeah.
can just start that process by finding that right point person, that chief of staff, they can help you so that you don't have to keep asking and asking and asking, because it's hard to ask.
So what you're saying is that if you discover that you have a health issue going on, you look at this in broad stroke terms to start with, like who can I bring on board to support me during this journey?
Right.
Have conversations with those individuals, let them know what's going on. As you said in your book, it's nice to have tons of food coming in, but after a while, you don't need all that food. You want someone to come with you to your appointments. You want to
Right.
have someone take notes. You want to have someone help you with the bills, just like you did with your mom. it's
Yeah,
it's having people come in with different roles and what they're able to do
absolutely.
within their
And
lives.
it's funny because people say to me, you're preaching proactivity. How am I supposed to be proactive when I don't know that I'm going to go on a health journey?
Hmm.
That's one of the things.
Hmm.
Well, just think, who are the people in your life that you would turn to if you needed to beforehand? Then when you need it, it's there.
Mm.
On that note, moving the timeline up a little bit, let's
Hmm.
say you have a diagnosis.
Yeah.
One of the most popular pieces of advice that I've given that people feel like they've never heard anywhere else, and I don't know why, because to me it seems almost second nature, is once you know that you're going to be on a journey, reach out to the strategic stakeholders, HR at your company, a case manager at your health insurance, maybe the administrator or nurse practitioner in your doctor's office or health system, and write them a proactive note. that says, "Hey, my name is Rebecca. I'm going to be embarking on a health journey. I'm not really sure what's going to go right or what's going to go wrong, but it would help me so much to know that if I hit a pothole, that I could reach out to you and that you would be available to help guide me." And
Wow.
then you've got a thread on
Yes.
on
Yes.
on your email.
Yeah.
You're not a stranger. They know your name and they feel part of your team already
Hmm.
just by you having done that. And it's so much better than having a panicked emergency.
Yeah. Yeah. And with that, and in your experience, the HR would go with that. They would be accepting of that. They would be available.
Yeah, they
Okay.
usually are. You know, the thing about HR is people tend to think of them as the adversary because they're already feeling adversarial with their employer because they're
Okay.
asking for things like,
Hmm.
I would like some time off. I need this, I need that, right? Um, so, so you could see how that would happen. But the truth of the matter is, and I know this because these folks were my clients when
Hmm.
I was working as a lawyer,
Hmm.
their job is to make the employment relationship as seamless and supported as possible.
Okay.
Their job is to retain employees, to attract good people and keep them.
Hmm.
That's their job.
That's
And
the
if you
job.
think about it like that, you should realize these can be your best friends. They
Hmm.
really can.
I love that piece of advice. And, we're talking about corporations right now and HR. If you do fall sick, what about if you're an entrepreneur and
Yeah.
you're not under the umbrella of a corporation? What do you suggest there?
Well, so from a workplace perspective, there's less to worry about in the sense that you're your own boss,
Hmm.
but you still are going to have coverage issues, access issues, all of that stuff. And you
Hmm.
still may have benefits like you may have a pension plan or maybe it's
Right.
an IRA that you can tap if need be. Maybe maybe there are things like that. You may have financial advisors. There's still a bulwark of benefits and possibilities to be supported on your journey that
Hmm.
exist for you, even if
Hmm.
you are an entrepreneur.
Okay. And I think we've got people working corporations, we've got people who are entrepreneurs listening, we've got educators, creators listening in. Um, a lot of women I know have dropped their health insurance because either they can't afford it, um,
Yeah.
economy, whatever it is. They know they want it. Sometimes they leave it too late if they are self-employed, or have side gigs to get insurance. What would you suggest? Because I read that chapter in your book about taking care of yourself.
Yeah. So, you and I have talked about this before
Mhm.
offline, and, women will find almost anybody to put before themselves,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Whether you have children, whether you have a spouse, whether you have pets, whether you have family members or friends around you, it's very typical for a woman to go, "Oh, I don't need that. I'm healthy. I'm good."
Hmm.
But here's the thing, in our system today, if you uh, if you have an emergency, you can go to the ER and you'll be treated. If you have an illness, you can still go to certain clinics and certain county hospitals and still be treated without insurance. That is true. But we can't always count on those things being sustained. And the fact is, every woman should try her best to find an insurance policy. There's a lot of financial aid available if it seems too expensive. There are a lot of options out there. It's not just one thing,
Hmm.
and there are different plans that might work better for some than others. But it's really important, I think, to consider that before the Affordable Care Act, we had a horrible problem with people going into medical debt. We still do have an issue with women going into medical debt, but from my perspective, the way to think about this is, where do you want to be treated? What is your idea of a home base for healthcare? When you know what that is, then you should work backwards from that in terms of
Okay.
getting insurance. Don't just go, "I need an insurance
Yeah.
policy. Let me go to the Covered California and find the cheapest one.
Mhm.
That's not the way to think about it in my mind. And
Mhm.
and once you do that, you can probably get subsidies often. Anyway, if money is the issue. But instead, think about, let's say, I'll just pick a name out of a hat. You love the doctors at Cedars-Sinai, let's say, for whatever reason, right? Then you go there and you talk to the folks there and you say, how can you help me think about what would be the very best insurance coverage that's affordable that your system is going to be accepting? That's the way to think about health
Oh
insurance.
my goodness, that's absolutely genius. So it's
Yeah.
taking that step before being reactive and going through all those policies that they send you and who you're going to be able to see.
Right.
It's taking that proactive step before and choosing where you would like to be and what they would accept.
Yeah, and
Excellent.
then be careful because you
Right.
should still go through the ACA state marketplace after that. You know why? There's a lot of advertisement out there for things that feel like safe insurance coverage,
Mm.
but but you don't know if it's not fully through the system and well regulated. You could be getting sold something like a short-term policy that
Hmm.
actually doesn't cover your pre-existing conditions. You
Hmm.
know, and there's a lot of marketing and a lot of deregulation of that stuff. So step one, where do you want to be treated? Step
Hmm.
two, make sure you go through official channels to buy the policy when you do.
Okay. Okay. And the official channels are usually
The state marketplaces.
the state marketplaces. Okay, fantastic. Really good information. Um, you know, eh, the thing is, when you talk about advocacy for women when illness hits, and your journey too for preventative diagnostics for cancer, um, were, let me put this, difficult in terms of getting coverage when you were going through your preventative diagnostics, from what I understand in the book.
Yeah, it wasn't exactly difficult to get things covered for me. I was very fortunate to have pretty good insurance. It was
Hmm.
more complicated
It's
around, what does a doctor think I want or need? What will insurance cover? And sometimes I would have a doctor say, well, you should have that scan. You know why? Because you're high risk enough that your insurance will cover it.
Mhm.
And I say, okay, but do I need that scan?
Mm.
Like, do I want it just because I could get it paid for? Is
Mm.
that the way I should be thinking about my healthcare journey? Or should I be thinking, what are the risks and rewards of doing a specific treatment, a specific scan, a specific anything? You know, like MRIs are a great example of that. They're super expensive. They're usually not covered, even though there's a lot of legislation pending to try to make it covered for women with dense breasts, let's say. Um, but then the question is, are there a lot of false positives? Will it actually help if they did find something? Would I do better because they found it that much earlier? Or would a mammogram or an ultrasound be okay? It's all just so complicated. And every doctor is going to have a different opinion. You know, there's not one gold standard answer. So what I really am trying to explain to folks, and I think that's what you were reacting to there, is we should not allow our third party payer system to set the standard of care. That's really irrational.
Yeah,
And
it
that's
really
that's
is.
not about wellness, that's about money,
Yeah.
regardless of whether it's covered or not covered.
And this is where the healthcare system, as you said, seems to devalue women because of these steps that they're taking. You do preventative, and they don't really allow you to do as much preventative as you'd like to be doing preventative.
Right.
Um, and then, God forbid, something terrible happens, and then they won't cover you for all of that, and you have to go somewhere else to another carrier. I mean, this is where having an advocate to help you get through all of these and jump over these hurdles
Yeah.
is imperative so that you can heal. How do we how do we find an advocate? Where do we go to find someone who can help us with all these answers?
So that's a great question. In my book, I talk specifically about this one wonderful organization called the Patient Advocate Foundation.
Mhm.
They have, first of all, a clearinghouse of super useful information. Secondly, they will connect folks with advocates. So that's one way. Another
Perfect.
way is to specifically talk with your insurer
Mhm.
and say, I'd like a case manager. I need some help. I need an individual human being to be part of this journey with me. I don't want to call and be on hold for hours and hours and hours and have, when I finally get the call picked up, somebody reads my file fresh. I want somebody involved. So
Mhm.
that's another thing. A third thing is inside of the health system where you work, there are usually social workers and or nurse practitioners who are trained to help patients advocate. But the thing is, all of this costs money. So you have to ask. Nobody's going to offer this to you
Okay.
unless you really ask.
And it's knowing what to ask for, which is so great you're on the show today because many of us don't even think to ask. We're so caught up with the drama of not being well and the
Of course.
diagnosis we've had. We're in a tailspin.
Yeah,
And that's why your chief of staff comes in to help
exactly.
keep you clear and present and with you
Exactly.
when you're making these calls and even with you when you go to your appointments so they can
Yeah.
make notes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's all kinds of note-taking stuff going on now because of AI.
AI.
Like a lot of the doctors now will be using AI to take notes, and a lot of that stuff is available pretty quickly in your electronic health record. So there's more to it than just a person coming and taking notes. It might be that person comes and listens and then checks the notes that are in the system and then helps you think about what they say and if they reflect what actually happened. It's so many layers. But
Yeah,
yeah,
so many layers. And also, you talked about when you get your bills coming through, which I thought was a
yeah.
really good practical piece of information as the bills start coming in, not necessarily always to pay the first one.
Yeah, don't panic pay.
Yeah,
I
I
really
love
believe
that.
I really believe that because I have seen so many instances of bills that were just flat out incorrect.
Hmm.
Either they billed your last insurance policy, not the one that you're on now, so of course it isn't covered because you're not even a member of that anymore, or the coding is incorrect. I mean, these things happen so often. There's a little bit of data showing that under certain plans, insurers just purposely deny to see what will happen. It's a little hard to prove. We don't
Mm,
really get to see behind the curtain what happens,
no,
but I have seen myself that there's some bills that keep getting sent to people that are just like under a certain amount of money that it's like daring you to pay it because escalating and dealing with it is so much harder.
I see. Yeah, well, I took that piece of information and gave it to a friend of mine literally 3 weeks ago because they were pulling their hair out with bills. I said, you have to read Rebecca's book.
Good.
This is going to really help you with the situation you're in. I said, do not pay that first bill. Do not
Yeah.
panic pay.
Yeah.
And
And I mean, you know what it's like? You get a piece of paper with a logo on it from a
yes,
healthcare
you go
organization. It
into
looks so
panic.
scary and official.
Yes.
And you see your name and you see, usually says due by X date, and it's a date that's too soon for comfort. And you start to flip out,
Hmm.
and understandably so.
Yeah, understandably so. So everything we're talking about right now, what's coming to my mind is that, becoming your own self-advocate during the healing process is really important with help, with support from your friends and family, with the support of Women's Health Advocate with the organization you shared, and having that team together and also asking the right questions, asking questions. Um, and if you're told no, for a treatment that you require, what do you do then?
You get a second opinion,
You get a second
always.
opinion, right?
In certain states, California being one of them, there are organizations that will give you free second opinions. They have a stable of awesome doctors who get how difficult this all is, who volunteer their time and go on Zoom with people and help them think through what the protocol should be or what their opinion is about what the protocol should be.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Um, okay.
California, Massachusetts. I wish every state had it, and
Yeah.
hopefully one day they will.
Well, hopefully
Because this
that's
is
the
something that
dream.
people can do outside of the government and outside of the system.
Yes. And these are some of the challenges that we face as women when we're tracking down health coverage for serious conditions. It's like not knowing where to go. And the
Yeah.
frustration builds up and makes us feel worse.
Yeah. Hey, can we talk about the internet and ChatGPT, et cetera, on
Yeah.
that note?
Uh-huh.
So here's what I tell people. I know you're going to look. I can't stop you. You have the Google. You know, some of us have become addicted with asking ChatGPT questions too. I know it. Please think it through. First of all, don't do that before you go to sleep at night.
No.
That's a big mistake. Don't do that. And secondly, hold it in abeyance what you're reading. Do not get super reactive to what you read. It's one-to-many communication. It isn't taking your specifics into account. It doesn't know you, even if it's acting like it does. Like ChatGPT is so friendly and supportive.
Hmm.
It's trained to be, but it's not real. It's a robot, right? So try to remember that there are people with an incredible amount of training who read these things probably differently than you do. And they have access to things to read that you may not have access to. So I'm not saying don't do your research, but I am saying keep a lid on it.
Keep a lid on it. Don't rely on it fully for your ultimate diagnosis and direction you should take, taking
Yeah.
into consideration everyone's advice. Really good information there, Rebecca, because I know there's a lot of people I know who are even using ChatGPT as a therapist now. So
I mean, I get
yeah,
it. Oh, there's a temptation there.
yeah,
You know, I
yeah.
I ask it some questions that are probably a little off the beam myself. I
Hmm.
mean, I think we all do.
Hmm.
It's just, consider the source
Yes,
always.
yes, absolutely. Great information. And you've talked about mindfulness in the book.
Hmm.
And I think this would be really important as we come to a close to share with our listeners the mindfulness piece of when women do get sick. Can you share more about that?
I will, but I also want to invite you to interject because you are the expert.
It,
So,
mhm.
let's make this a
Yeah,
conversation.
absolutely.
Because I have a point of view about the sort of popularization of mindfulness and the popularization and kind of oversimplification of positivity, the good vibes train, manifestation, all those things. They can actually really hurt a woman when she's on a health journey. So what I recommend is to be a little mindful about mindfulness,
Mhm.
get kind of meta about it, recognize that there are some people who are uncomfortable and are going to say things like, hey, good vibes only to you. And that's probably not really what you want to hear. You need to protect yourself by seeking out mindfulness opportunities inside of sensitive and safe spaces, disease specific organizations, professionals you can truly trust, not the Instagram memes. Anybody who is so preachy about that you get what you attract might be a little hard to talk to when you've got an illness because then you go, "Oh, did I attract this?" So it's complicated. You know how I am about these things. It's not so simple. So just be careful with those oversimplifications because they might not make you feel great.
Exactly. And I think, in everything we've talked about, it's self-advocacy, it's choice, it's taking responsibility for where you want to put your attention, what feels right to you, what doesn't, move away from. And the mindfulness could be um, meditation with a group of the people who've got the same challenges you have every month, every week, every month. It just to calm and relax. It could be something as simple as that. I think it is important to share with that group around us that when we are not feeling good, we don't want to hear everybody's advice and opinion on what we should do next. Maybe that could be
Yeah.
something that you share. Be, hey, everyone, I know you really mean well, but I don't want to hear it right now. Um, and I'm setting that boundary. So it's setting boundaries in terms of what you need to receive at the time. And that's a form of mindfulness, self-awareness,
Mm-hmm.
and checking into what's important to you rather than keep going along with what everyone else is telling you. I feel illness in of itself really brings home to us what we need for our own self-care to feel better and to heal, and makes us make our own choices and puts us in
Yeah.
that position that perhaps we haven't been in before because we didn't have to be. It's not fun by any means, but it does take us to that place of setting boundaries, for
I
sure.
think that's right. And you and I are friends and colleagues, so I feel
Mm-hmm.
I can have this conversation with you in this space because I think it's safe. As an advocate who works mostly on the Western medicine side of things, I often find myself in a sticky situation with folks when they say to me, "Well, what about this alternative thing? What about that alternative thing?"
Mm-hmm.
And it's it, it's interesting because like I'm not a doctor, um, and it's not my job to say this has to be evidence-based for you to do it, or I don't want to talk about it. It isn't that. It's just my job is to say, here are the array of options.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things I do worry about, and again, you and I have talked about this before, is the system is failing women. So
Mm.
they're really vulnerable. And there are a lot of people out there looking to take advantage of vulnerable people. And that is really tricky. I mean, I don't know if you saw that TV show, Apple Cider Vinegar.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about it, I thought, maybe, but maybe
I
not.
think so. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's this whole world of wellness that is outside of traditional medicine. And again, I think to navigate that requires a kind of mindfulness and carefulness and thoughtfulness as well.
Yeah, it's a lot of pressure that you're already under when you have a diagnosis. So focusing in on the priorities first. I mean, I used to work at hospitals and at John Wayne Cancer Unit doing the holistic services that I provide. And I always said, do the priority first, get used
Yeah.
to that system of what's needed, and then think about what else you want to add to that that is a fit for you with someone who's reliable and trained and professional and
Hmm.
recommended, and not instead of. It's something that should be part of the
Yeah.
treatment that everyone knows about, the doctor agrees on, and follow it that way so it's not so confusing.
Yeah. I mean, that's so well said.
So
See, I knew
yeah.
you'd have something to say on that topic.
You know me, I've always got something to say. As we come to a close, I would love for you to share a golden nugget with us, for all of those women listening in. What would you share as your golden nugget from today's episode that you would like to share with women?
I would like to share that no woman should ever go on a health journey alone. Help is available.
Yeah, lovely. Now, thank you. Where can we find you?
You can find me on Instagram at When Women Get Sick or on the internet,
Mhm.
whenwomengetsick.com.
Okay, and we can buy your book on Amazon.
Yes, and any place else that books are sold.
Wonderful. Okay. Well, everyone, thank you for listening in today. Rebecca, thank you so much for this amazing information, insights, direction. And I'm sure a lot of women who've been listening today will think, I didn't know that. Oh my goodness, I can go and do that. So thank you. And I will see you next time.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye now.
Thank you for listening to Your Unique Brilliance podcast. And if you want to define your brilliance and redefine your diamond potential, schedule a personal consultation with me to discover just how you can do that at nicolasalter.com. While you're there, make sure to subscribe to the show so you will never miss an episode. And if you found value in this show, I would appreciate a rating on iTunes, or simply tell a friend. That would be amazing. You are amazing. Have an empowered week, everyone.